The Killer Bunny, a trope as old as writing itself. It's the ultimate exercise of subversion. It's a writing tool and a trick that works on our biological instincts by making the otherwise cute and harmless deadly and brutal. And this obviously works so well because it weaponizes innocence. Usually audiences and even characters within the show lower their guard around the cute and innocence, usually a child, a puppy, or more importantly, a rabbit, which makes the sudden shift to extreme violence jarring, memorable, and often terrifying. We see it in old iconic movies like Monty Python. We see it a lot in today's pop culture, like games, mainly Minecraft, or movies, but more importantly, we even see it in anime, with ReZero being the perfect example of this. And ReZero itself has to be one of my favorite anime of all time, and definitely my favorite isekai show. And this could be attributed to a lot of reasons, one of which is obviously the premise, which is reincarnation through death, where whenever he dies, Subaru, the main character, reincarnates few days prior to his death. However, if I had to say it, one of my most favorite moments about that show has to be the Killer Bunny scene. And not only because of its brutality and how iconic it is, but also in its delivery as well. You see, Subaru just survived the unsurvivable. Everyone around him died, and everyone died without a trace. No corpses around him, nothing to be seen, and no one is there. And so the air is already thick with the scent of death. And everything around him is dead silent, not even animals exist within the vicinity, which already puts Subaru in an alert state because what could be the cause of all of this? However, and contrary to everything up until this moment, he all of a sudden witnesses a cute rabbit. As Subaru sees the bunny standing alone in the snow being cute and all, he does what any sane person would do and he approaches the rabbit in order to investigate it because it is the only alive creature in the vicinity and it is also a rabbit, so what could happen, right? Well, as soon as Subaru extends his hand, the rabbit completely cuts it off and starts eating it. And I gotta tell you guys, the first time I witnessed this, it immediately sent a chilling feeling down my spine. Like, how could this cute bunny be this brutal? Well, you see, Subaru was thinking the same thing. And as soon as he tried to back off, he immediately falls because he is missing a leg. As it turns out, there was another rabbit in the snow that cut off his leg. And all of a sudden, Subaru is surrounded by an infinite number of bunnies that are emerging from the snow. And they all jump him and they all start eating him. And when I tell you guys this is one of the most brutal scenes in anime, you gotta believe me. Because not only was Subaru being eaten alive much like Attack on Titan, it's actually much worse because it's not one crushing bite, but rather he is dying by millions and millions of small bites. Then, to make things worse, the rabbits actually enter him from his mouth and start eating him from the outside as well as eating him from within. And here's the crazy part. Once Subaru reincarnates, he actually understands what happened. The reason not a singular creature existed within the vicinity is without a doubt thanks to these little rabbits. As it turns out, these are mana-eating rabbits, meaning they literally leave no trace. They even clean the scene of any blood because blood itself contains mana. And thus the reason Subaru woke up to an empty village and castle is exactly because of the rabbits. However, here's the crazy part. The whole trope of the killer bunny does not have to be a literal bunny. The true strength of the trope is not in the fur, it is in the subversion. And I feel like within ReZero itself, we see this multiple times. However, I feel like the anime that perfected this the most is without a doubt Dragon Ball Z. Now, they kinda did it with Vegeta and kinda did it with Kid Buu, but I feel like especially with Frieza, this whole trope was perfected. You see, Frieza was completely different from his goons. While they were all about their big muscles, his tiny character design stood as an obvious contrast. But as we all know, Frieza is more evil than all of them. All of his goons that seem far more terrifying than him do not even compare in terms of their evilness. But it was not just with this. Akira Toriyama actually carried this trope to even his transformations. At first, each transformation made him look bigger, more alien, and overall more threatening. However, the surprise came from his final form, which oddly enough was a lot human-like. I would say he literally looked like a kid, minus the tail of course. But all of this was done on purpose, because Frieza represents the ultimate evil in the show, and the subversion made through his character design is exactly what the killer bunny trope is all about. And of course, as I said, this is a psychological trope that tricks our brains and our biology. And of course, because of this, I truly believe a psychological genius such as Kanshiro is definitely up to something with none other than our favorite Itoshi destroyer, Bunny Iglesias. I mean, before we even explore it, the name Bunny kinda gives it off. However, before we actually even get to Bunny, let me just say that you can already feel the same trope from Isagi. Because contrary to his unassuming nature and look, Isagi is without a doubt the motherfucker of Blue Lock. And thus, in a sense, Isagi as well embodies the killer bunny trope. And in fact, he will be very important to understanding Bunny on two fronts. And so, let's get to that. Let's get to understanding why Bunny embodies the killer bunny trope. As I said, the first obvious clue is without a doubt the name. You look at Kaiser Lorenzo and you look at Vivian Hugo, and you immediately get the feel of a great German, Italian and French names respectively. I mean, Kaiser and Lorenzo specifically embody their cultures perfectly. However, what does the writer choose for the new Gen 11 of Spain? Probably the second most important team after France. Bunny Iglesias. Now, Iglesias itself is a very interesting name and we will get to it in a second, but the bunny name coupled with having a very distinctive design is a bit on the nose for me. I mean, this has to be intentional, especially because there are no coincidences with Kanshiro. I mean, the red eyes and the white hair with a pinkish tint, come on. Bro literally looks like a killer bunny. But that's actually not all of it. The empty smile is also a sign of a killer bunny. And this is where Isagi comes to play. Because it was Isagi who immediately understood that something is off with Bunny. And here's the thing, Isagi did not understand it at first. He only did after having a lengthy exchange with Bunny. However, what did Isagi realize specifically? Well, you see, at first he thought of Bunny to be an innocent person. The way he looked, the way he carried himself, and the innocent smile gives off a very non-threatening feel. However, as soon as he interacted with Bunny for an extended period, he realized that the smile is actually not genuine at all. And instead, it is entirely empty, as if there is literally nothing behind it. And here's the crazy part. Bunny did not deny nor even care about Isagi's observation. In fact, he himself believes that to be true. As he told Isagi, when I see someone who is very passionate about something, it makes me wanna puke. Now, this is what Bunny said, but what I think he meant, it makes me wanna destroy them. And that's very interesting because this could lead us to what happened exactly between Bunny and Sai. You see, I feel because Bunny had a very laid back and a very playful personality, Sai must have definitely underestimated him, completely fallen into the killer bunny trope. The same way Isagi felt no threat from Bunny whatsoever. And so I think Sai, who was very novice at the time, who literally was on the level of Rim prior to Blue Lock, definitely have underestimated Bunny because of his smiles and because of his non-threatening aura. However, I feel like because he did that, Bunny actually ended up destroying Sai in the most brutal way possible. Initiating of course this rivalry, but proving the killer bunny trope. Bunny seemed very innocent and he seemed to be smiling and non-threatening, only for him to be revealed to be the most dangerous striker at the time. Especially because when Sai met Bunny, Kaiser did not play football yet and Loki was in a lower league. And thus not only did Bunny be revealed to be the best striker of their generation, he also was revealed to have a nasty personality and actively hunted Sai and dominated him every time Real played against FC Barca. This honestly for me makes the most plausible theory into how Bunny completely destroyed Sai to the point the latter gave up on being a striker and wanted to be a midfielder. Much like Bunny tricked Isagi, I definitely believe Bunny tricked Sai only for him to completely destroy him at the end of the first season. However, going back to Isagi, you see, it wasn't Bunny who just tricked Isagi, because the latter also tricked Bunny. And this goes back to the fact that Isagi himself embodies a little bit of the killer bunny trope. Isagi himself seems very unassuming and seems very innocent. Even though Isagi was talking so much about football, Bunny still did not think much of him. And instead, he continued with his tricks. And only after seeing him in the U20 World Cups that Bunny finally acknowledged Isagi. However, something interesting happens in that scene, and it is one of the biggest mysteries in Blue Lock, because Bunny says this about Isagi. He says that he is one of them. And up until this point, no one has been successful into theorizing what Bunny could have meant by this statement. However, if the killer bunny trope theory is correct, well, Bunny could have seen that Isagi is the same as him. Isagi was completely supportive of Nigeria throughout the game, and he was smiling and shaking hands with Onazi. However, at the end of the game, we've seen Isagi go out of his way to destroy Nigeria idea completely. And this could have triggered a pattern within Bunny's mind. He definitely sees Isagi smiling a lot, only for him to be a motherfucker on the field, and only for him to be an anomaly that wants to crush the opposing teams. Now obviously, Isagi is not as twisted and as broken as Bunny here, but I feel like Bunny must have seen something regarding this for him to say that he is the same as me or the same as us, which could mean that there might be a lot of killer bunnies within the show, right? In any case, however, another important thing regarding this scene of Bunny is actually the scars on his face and his body. Well, you see, the scar on his face specifically looks like a cross, and the scars on his body, a lot of them also resemble crosses, and this is where his family name comes to play, Bunny Iglesias. You see, thanks to someone on my live stream, someone who speaks Spanish fluently told me that Iglesias translates literally to churches in the Spanish language, and this is a family name that was given to families who serve in churches or live nearby churches. Now this immediately is insane because with the cross on his face, his name being related to churches, and him being from the Catalonia region, you already know that Bunny is one messed up of a character. And here I don't want to get too much into religion or politics, but one of the biggest monuments of the city of Barcelona is the cathedral, which is, by the way, one of the biggest masterpieces in terms of architecture in the entirety of the human history. However, with Christianity being as big as it is in the Catalonia region, and the Catalonia region in itself and its constant altercation with the Spanish crown, Bunny might actually be the most complex character in the entirety of the show, beating even Michael Kaiser. As I said, I really do not want to get too political or too religious here, but his past with the church and his empty smiles and his very non-threatening aura, coupled with his very distinctive design, gives me a sense that Bunny might end up the most dangerous player in the entirety of Blue Lock. Bunny might be the character who would have the most influence over Blue Lock of all the other side characters, and I would say his influence could be second only to Kaiser or even be on that level. And so for this reason specifically, I really hope this theory comes to be true, especially because it is one of the best tropes in writing and it would really set Bunny apart and would make him one of the best characters in the show. However, that's all I've got for you today, guys. Please let me know what do you think about this theory and if I am up to something here. But until next time, thank you for watching.